Hello, world. My name is Dana ID Matthews, and welcome to my show about stuff. And today I'm going to be talking about My Dad Wrote a Porno, and not my dad, but apparently some British guy's dad. And this is a podcast. Now, I got to say that this podcast is one of the most unique, poorly written, and funny stories I have had the pleasure of hearing. Now, first and foremost, I want to go ahead and say off jump that I have never read even a shred of any erotic book, so I have no expectations. I came into it, fresh, open mind, and I don't claim to be a sex virtuoso, so I said this is all new territory for me. Now, the podcast starts with three people. Two men and a woman, and right off the bat, they are cracking jokes. The choice of words from the very beginning are brutal. Some of the words I can remember from the very first chapter being vaginal lids and internal attributes. So just to give you a little taste of what kind of things to expect. Now, I gotta say, I was surprised at how much I got into the storyline, even though it was everywhere and completely nonsensical at times. The name of the protagonist is Belinda. As they read through, one thing that stood out to me was her sexual appetite. It was big. She was unapologetic about it, and I thought that was pretty cool. I've always seen sex as a fun activity instead of this super serious till death do us part type of thing that stresses out old and young folk alike. I feel like in life there's just so much pressure put around sex, from penis size to boob size to ass size to your actual performance, and personally I just find all of that unnecessary. On the last chapter of the first book, a young couple, I think they're just reading like messages that people have sent them, and things like that. There was a young couple that told the host that listening to them read this book had helped them overcome their fear of having sex together for the first time. And at first I was confused because like the books is so unsexy and poorly written, spelling and punctuation mistakes everywhere, and hilarious to a point where you would think that nobody would be turned on by this. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. When you're listening to the podcast, Belinda is going through various sexual acts with various people, and the whole time you're just having a good time, gasping and laughing along at how this man's dad has a terrible grasp on the woman's perspective on sex. But it's fun, pure adulterated fun. All of a sudden you're not thinking about the little things. He makes sex sound absolutely ridiculous and goofy, and honestly I can't speak for anybody else, but that's how I've personally always felt about it. I can't call myself a good dirty talker. I've never been the man to whisper sweet nothings in your ear, and I've certainly never been the guy to walk up to a stranger and sweep them off their feet, with my overwhelming sexual presence. And the thing this book does is say, that's all right. Sex is orgasmically ridiculous anyways. Relax, have fun. And I have to admit, every now and then a line would come up and I'd think to myself, hey, that was all right. That was a pretty sexy line. And then the host would just burst out laughing. And then I'd be like, oh, snap. And then, whatever, just I'd laugh anyways because, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Everybody has their own sexual preferences and fetishes. Everybody reacts differently to different sexual stimuli, and that's perfectly fine. What might be completely unsexy to one person might drive the next person up the wall. This podcast is a reminder that sex is meant to be fun, and I think that is an important lesson that mainstream media is not really teaching, young people these days. Instead, we're shaming women for having multiple partners. We're shaming gay people for being sexually attracted to the same sex. It's a little ridiculous, extremely hurtful, and not an accurate representation of where humanity is sexually, at least not in my personal opinion. Now, Belinda gets into all sorts of shenanigans. She's doing it in the business offices. She's joining the Mile High Club. She's doing it in Amsterdam. All the while selling pots and pans as per her job description. The characters she meets along the way are all wacky but intriguing and interesting in their own way, and the different ways that Belinda interacts with them are equally as wacky, but again, still intriguing and interesting. And, you, like, even though it's poorly written, as you get to season 2, and I just finished season 2, you start to realize that this man is slowly but surely developing like his own writing style. And not only that, but it's getting better in some weird way. Um, I can already say, from listening to season 1 and 2, number 2 is an improvement writing wise from number 1, somehow dot dot dot. Uh, but that, I feel like it's a little lesson in like, hey man, just do your own thing, just do what you can in the way that you know how, and trust yourself. And the fact that this is now like a big comedy thing that's like exploded, and by reading it, like I'm sure if I picked this up accidentally on my own, like I can make it into what it is. So it's just kind of cool. Don't give up on your on your dreams, you know what I mean. And another little tidbit I ran into while doing a little research on the podcast. Did you know that HBO has agreed to launch a TV comedy series based on My Dad Wrote a Porno? And I'm super pumped for that. It makes me think of what actors and actresses would fit what roles. I personally hope that no notable or like star Hollywood people are in it. I want each character to be have their own look, an unknown actor, so that when you look at them, we only see the character from the book and not someone that we're already familiar with in real life. I also have an idea. If you are familiar with a TV series called The Drunk History, and I might make a Dana show about stuff about this later, Drunk History, then you'll know what I'm talking about. It basically, instead of the actor or actress talking, instead you have a person telling a story, and in their voice is the voice, like in their voice is the voice that comes out of the face of the actor or actress. Essentially, voice acting, but for live action film and not a cartoon. Or another way of looking at it is the actor or actress is lip syncing with the voice actor's voice. So that's the type of setup I see that would work for this, it being a comedy and all. The wackier the character is and the wackier the voice acting is, the better it gets. Anyways, just putting it out there. Anyways, the My Dad Wrote a Porno show is slated for sometime in 2019. I don't know the exact month or anything like that, but it's next year. I'm pumped. If you've been following the podcast, and you didn't know about this, you should be excited as well. With that said, I think any adult, young and old, should check this podcast out. At the very least, it's just hilarious fun, poking at all the different, out of this world ways this man's dad can describe sexual acts. His metaphors are something special, I'll tell you. And at most, it's a reminder to humanity that we need to teach people about sex early on, so that if they decide to write a, erotic novella in their old age, it makes some sort of sense. Either way, check it out. My Dad Wrote a Porno, a good listen and a laugh out loud riot, I would say. Easy to find online, but I'll leave a link in the description below. Definitely going to finish season 3 and season 4, and then I'll be, every Monday, I'll be waiting. It's good stuff. And yeah, but I think that's it for me. My name is Dana I.D. Matthews. Thank you very much for listening. Peace out.